I grew up in Alberta and was privy to a lot of farming communities, and farmers were some of the strongest people I knew. And the premise was like they're not lifting, they're not deadlifting 600 pounds, but they're constantly lifting stuff that's heavy. And because of that consistency over intensity, they are super strong. And so that was like a microcosm of or a small example of how the consistency could trump intensity.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Great to see you and be with you again for another show. On this show, we dive into health, well-being, and high performance, and we bring you experts to help you do that in a sustainable way. This week, we are so fortunate to have Dr. Kwadwo Kyeremanteng join us to discuss prevention over prescription. Now, Dr. Kwadwo is an ICU physician and health advocate dedicated to transforming lives. He has a deep understanding of critical care medicine and a passion for prevention, and he helps individuals like you take charge of your health through education and community. His holistic approach empowers you to live a healthier and more fulfilling life and ensures that he meets you thriving, not in the intensive care unit. No matter what your starting point is, his goal is to empower you with the knowledge and tools that make a real difference in your daily life. By addressing the core aspects of well-being, he equips you with practical strategies to create lasting change. Dr. Kwadwo's focus is on helping you to prevent health setbacks, avoid the ICU, and live a life rooted in wellness. He believes in prevention over prescription. He believes that true health starts with prevention. By preventing the root causes of illness through informed decisions, sustainable habits, and proactive care, you can reduce the need for medical interventions. Prevention empowers you to stay ahead of the health challenges, ensuring that you experience long-term wellness and a thriving life. He also believes in a holistic approach to wellness. Well-being is more than just physical health. It's a balance of nutrition, mental clarity, and lifestyle choices. This holistic approach considers every aspect of your life, providing the tools to create lasting transformation. By focusing on the whole person, you can achieve meaningful, sustainable results that enhance every area of your life. He also believes in empowering you through knowledge. Knowledge is the foundation of change. And when you understand your health, you can make informed decisions that align with your goals. Education equips you with the confidence to navigate challenges, improve habits, and take control of your journey toward a healthier, more balanced life. We are so fortunate to have Dr. Kwadwo Kyeremanteng on the show today. Let's dive into it. Dr. Kwadwo, thank you so much for joining us. This is so exciting.
Oh, great. Thanks for having me. This is going to be a highlight of the day, of the week. I've been excited to see this one in the book. So thanks for having me.
Right on. And you are joining us from the hospital. Like you literally are stepping out of the ward to come and chat to us. So thank you. I appreciate it. If you got to go, you got to go, but we'll ask you as many questions as we can before hopefully that happens. Hopefully that doesn't happen. But I would love to just get a bit of a background on how you got into, obviously you're an ICU physician, but you're leaning into knowledge translation and making a positive impact literally on the world through the idea of prevention over prescription. I think it started at an ICU moment. Let's hear the origin story for this shift you're making.
Oh my goodness. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Greg. And there's a long version which I'm trying to condense, but I was in my last year of fellowship training, and we were taking care of this young patient. There was a trauma patient, and he was quadriplegic and was heavily reliant on chest physio provided by the physiotherapist and the respiratory therapist. All this to say he freed himself from the ventilator, and unfortunately we go into a long weekend where there's been clearly having cutbacks and we have no access to physio over the weekend, and he ends up gets a mucus plug, so ends up getting a new pneumonia, back in the ICU, 3 weeks there, thousands of dollars more, and unfortunately the experience for him to have to go through all that all over again, to me was just a huge aha moment that we need to do better as a system. So I ended up going to do my Master's of Health Administration formed a research group called Resource Optimization Network, a multidisciplinary group to look at ways to reduce spending but improve care. 100 papers later, nothing changed. Absolutely nothing changed. And so the team approached me saying, hey, we need to get more creative at getting the word out there. So let's start a podcast. And it originally started as Solving Healthcare, and then we transitioned to prevention over prescription. And Greg, my world has changed from that single step. It was abundantly clear that when people read a paper, maybe 200 people read it back to front, and then a lot of people read the abstract. Whereas if you can reach people via podcasting, via mainstream media, via social media, the reach is so much greater. And that was a big aha moment for me. And during the pandemic is when we really put a lens on preventative health, because when we saw the amount of people coming in with metabolic syndrome, so obesity, type 2 diabetes, high blood pressure, things that were modifiable, when we thought about that ICU admission from COVID, which was about over 50 grand in Canada, if we put even an ounce of that into preventative health, wow, like we could really put a dent in people's lives, and the costs associated with that, the PTSD, depression, the poor function that we see associated with an ICU admission. So that was the big pivot for me. It was like, and our team was like, let's really lean into that whole preventative health side. And I gotta say, it's been so rewarding. It's been a gift to have that lens, and with the lens of trying to inspire, trying to keep people as healthy and out of the ICU or out of acute care as best we can. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded. That's essentially the genesis of how you and I are talking now.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like I was at Toronto General, at Sick Kids, at the University of Toronto, and found that I was better at knowledge translation, and it could actually make a difference. And of course, we need people to generate the knowledge. I want the research done. I want the clinical work done. I am now really focused on trying to get messages out around prevention, around lifestyle, around health span and lifespan, but doing so in a really evidence-based manner, which is why it's so awesome to have you here, obviously. And would you ever have imagined, this is imagine that you're gone back and talked to yourself in med school and be like, by the way, this is what you're going to end up doing. You probably would have been like, what? So pretty crazy where we end up.
Far from it. Yeah. Like I mean, I always say sometimes when I give these talks, like I was just on survival mode, just trying to get by and trying to figure out a way that you could contribute. And a lot of focus on the one-on-ones, like when you're the patient in front of you, how are you going to impact their lives? And the gift of what we're doing here is that one video, one social media post, one book can impact thousands, if not more, of people. So that when you get a little flavor of that, when you get a little taste of that, you realize that it's so important. But to answer you directly, there's zero chance I thought I'd be doing something like this back in med school.
I know. My grade 8 English teacher would have a nervous breakdown if he knew that I had written 5 books. But anyway, moving on. Let's talk about prevention, and let's just sort of think about that. Let's say that we do not want cancer. We do not want heart disease. We don't want metabolic syndrome. We don't want type 2 diabetes. We don't want depression. We don't want anxiety. We don't want neurodegenerative diseases. What are some things that we can do to help make sure that that doesn't happen to us?
Yeah, great question, Greg. And the way we've kind of distilled it with our group is we look at 5 main pillars to try and help create that existence and to reduce your risk of everything you mentioned. And we call it the PRESS method: P for purpose, R for restoration and stress management, E is for eating and nutrition, S is for strength and exercise, and the last S is for social connection. And what I often say is, or what the basis of the book was to look at ways individually that would move the needle for you? Like, what is the 80/20 of your health when it comes to areas where you're not winning? So if you're 30 pounds overweight and you're looking to get healthier, you gotta have a why. You gotta have a North Star, and to me that that almost is a non-negotiable in terms of really thinking about that, because when you are, it becomes January 1st or January 2nd, and you've been promising yourself to get to the gym or whatever, and you you're tired, it's dark outside. If you don't have that anchor, it's hard to pull yourself out of it. So I I it was one of the latest additions to the book, but thinking about that purpose was definitely, I think, needs to be front and center. And then really thinking about what your individual kryptonite is. And so for most of us, it's
Mm.
on the nutrition side of things. And within nutrition, I think most of us, if we were to focus on protein intake, we would be miles ahead compared to where we once were. So that to me is always the principle. When you look at your life holistically, what are the soft spots, and then how do we what is the simplest, easiest tweak that we can make that's going to allow you to succeed? And because for all of us, it's something different. Like for me personally, is sleep. That's the one that is my kryptonite. Like I need to work on that. I'm pretty good at sleep quality, but sleep duration, I'm not winning. And so, what is the little tweaks that we could do on a regular basis to help try and achieve that? And as an example, I try and stay as active, try and get outside and get my step count as high as possible, to try and enhance that sleep, that I want to go to bed at 10:30 instead of 11:30.
Got it. All right, let's just take a little bit of a break. Let's breathe for a moment so that we can integrate all of this incredible science. And at this point, I'd love for you to share the episode with someone that you know. When you share this information, we all improve. We build a community together where we make the world a better place. So take a moment, pause, breathe, think through what we're learning, and share this with someone who could really benefit from learning this information. It's interesting that we start talking about preventing chronic disease, and yet you started at purpose, meaning having an anchor, because without that, you actually can't, it's really hard to make those changes or implement the strategies that we're talking about. Like we literally have to start with the anchor of purpose, mission, and vision and meaning and the why.
Absolutely. Yeah, and once again, it wasn't something I thought of too much, because I've I've always been a relatively healthy individual, and to me the why was intuitive. Like I want to have that health span. I want to be there for my spouse. And then when the kids came, it was even easier. It's like, hey,
Yeah,
I,
totally.
I want to be there to be able to see my grandkids, and I also want to be a role model in terms of healthy living for my boys. Like, it's one thing to just chirp and say, hey, you need to exercise, but if they see you and mom exercising on a regular basis, there's nothing more golden than that. So that for me was like the why was clear, but for a lot of people, they that takes a little bit of work actually.
Yeah. My 15-year-old has been dragging me to the gym this week, and she's like, hey, Dad, you want to go work out? What are you going to say? Like, no. So you have to say yes. And she is pretty fit, and I'm so sore, Dr. K. Like, I can't even tell you. So we're just going to move on from that one. You did mention something really interesting. You said individual kryptonite. And that's really interesting because I did a session with a colleague of mine, and actually they really focused on this. Like, what are the things that you could anticipate might hold you back from reaching your dreams? I didn't think of it in terms of my kryptonite, which is awesome, being a Superman fan. And of course, nutrition is that for some people, sleep is that for some people, stress is that for some people. But talk to me a little bit about the importance of identifying that kryptonite and having a plan to make sure that you address it in advance of running into it actually out in the world or in your day-to-day life.
Yeah, Greg, it's if you look at most people that are looking for some transformative change in their lives, with their health, there's always a hiccup. There's always a barrier. And to me, if we could plan for that, then we are going to be miles ahead. So for some people, for example, it's snacking at night, or it's we mentioned poor sleep, or what have you. But for the people that really have a tough time with the snacks, to me, the plan would be, what's the healthy alternative? We're not going to stop it altogether tomorrow. You're saying like, oh, you're not going to have something to eat at 8:30. I don't want you to, but if you're going to, here's the option, so that we can anticipate and allow you to feel like you're winning. Because a lot of this is mindset, as you know. Like if you feel like you're moving in the right direction, getting momentum, that's powerful. And that's why I often focus on the process metrics. Like the people obviously want to see their weight come down, or their body fat percentage go down, the stress go down. But in terms of metrics, I always say like the goal was to hit the gym 5 days in this week, or 4 days this week, and you got to the gym on the fourth day, and you're like, I don't feel like it. Instead of that 25-minute workout, I did that 10-minute thing, just added some stretches, but I didn't hit the gym as hard as I'd like to. I say that's still a W. You showed up.
100%.
And like the consistency, I would say, a lot of people will disagree with me this, but I'm like consistency over intensity any day for me. Like I find that in my personal life. I've seen that with the people we worked with. The fact that you're just showing up, because there's going to be times where you just show up, you don't feel like it, and I know you've had this experience, especially describing what you're experiencing with your daughter. You're like, I do not feel like doing this class, and then you do the class and you're like beasting in it. You're like leading the charge, and so there's something. Sometimes there's just a change in mindset, a little shift in energy, just something changes that allows you to be energized. And so that's why I say, just follow the process. That's the W. And often you're going to be able to actually do better than you think you're going to do.
Let's pull on the thread of consistency is more important than intensity, because the vast majority of us, consistency is the win. As you said, it's the W. You just show up. You are going to make progress, even if it's a tiny bit. I love that idea of consistency is more important than intensity.
Like I got a level 1 in CrossFit, and these other metrics, these other approaches when it comes to the gym life, and intensity works for sure, but it's hard to maintain. And so I've been a bigger believer in some of the consistency work. Like there's it's more in the strength training world, but the Eastern European approach for strength anyway is like you don't overtask yourself. You rarely overtax yourself, but you do a lot of volume at 70% max. But because you're doing so much volume, you're not overtaxing your nervous system. Your muscles are engaged, and the strength happens. It's like where'd you grow up? I know you're in Toronto, but did you grow
Montreal when I was a kid, Toronto through high school, University of Calgary for swimming during college. Funny, I mentioned swimming more than attending classes. And then back in Toronto, and then some time in BC during the pandemic, but global traveler, 53 countries.
Wow.
Kind of all over the place, but yeah, that's where I'm from.
Wow. No, and the reason I ask is like I grew up in Alberta and was privy to a lot of farming communities, and farmers were some of the strongest people I knew. And the premise was like they're not lifting, they're not deadlifting 600 pounds, but they're constantly lifting stuff that's heavy. And because of that consistency over intensity, they are super strong. And so that was like a microcosm of or a small example of how the consistency could trump intensity. And just the thing too is like you're more likely to enjoy it. That's the other aspect of it. And this is, maybe I'm personalizing this a bit, but if I know I'm going to one of these CrossFit workouts where I'm going to want to vomit after near the end of it, it's harder to get jazzed up for it compared to just showing up and doing something that is, moderately intense, but I'm doing it more frequently. Maybe that's just me, so I shouldn't maybe generalize that. But I I just think it's rare for people to be consistent, and so if you emphasize that over trying making sure that they're having the most intense workout, you're just going to get more long-term sustainable results.
I love it. Let's keep moving through this press method, and I want to talk a little bit about strength because we walking's great, cardio is really important, stretching is critical too, but I think that strength is absolutely essential. We're also learning so much about protein and its importance in health and well-being and managing or regulating our appetite and satiety. So why is strength so critical to disease prevention, health span, longevity? What specifically role does that play, and why is it something we need to incorporate in our lives?
Maybe I'll give a story to kind of exemplify this in my world. So I saw this patient. He's in his mid 70s, avid goer. He goes to the gym 5 days a week, 5:30 in the morning, regular basis. He lets me tell this story, so it's not it's it's okay to bust this out. But he had a cardiac arrest, so he died for a period of time. And luckily, his wife is a nurse and was able to do CPR and buy time until the ambulance came and restarted his heart. And most people at that age that land in ICU post death, post cardiac arrest, their outcomes are very poor. They don't survive. They come out with severe disability or brain damage, so they're dependent on care, so they'll end up in a long-term care facility or nursing home. And the unique thing about this individual, because of his foundation, because he worked out and was strong, he was able to do things that I've never seen. So he was able to walk while on a ventilator, like while he was on life support. He
Oh
had
my
that,
God.
yeah, like it's like we don't see young people do it, but he had the fortitude to say like I need to get conditioned, I need to get strong. So he on a daily basis pushed himself, and in this case he was walking while on a form of life support that was keeping his lungs and oxygen in his system, and and as a result, he's at home now. He's able to play with his grandkids. He's living his best life, and that's the power of strength. And not only was it that the strength, physical strength, but it's also the resilience, because mental resilience, because not every day you're going to feel like getting up and working with the physiotherapist to get you moving. Because to be honest with you, function is what kills. Frailty is what kills. I it's actually hard to die in general, like with all the ventilators, the dialysis machines, and bypass machines. But what what it comes down to is quality of life. And if you can't go back to where you once were, or go to a life that you feel is acceptable, this is what the most common reason why people pass away in the ICU. So frailty is a legit killer. And even if you agree to go on the machines as long as you want and all that stuff, frailty is what adds to the complications. Your new infections, clots in the legs, problems breathing. And so this is why strength, especially as we age, is so important. And there's other components to having not strength, not only strength, but having muscle. Like as an example, your blood sugar regulation is much better as someone that's either pre-diabetic or diabetic. Your you as you because your muscles soak up glucose, they love that. Uh, like and so that's one of the biggest contributors. In fact, and the fact that with the more muscle you burn more calories. Your basal metabolic rate is increased. So I'm a big believer of maintaining strength, putting on lean muscle. And then the other component to this, which I didn't get into in the book, but just as food for thought, because I feel like you're a bit of a nuanced guy, but it's also power, like the ability to move weight quickly. And
Yeah.
the example I like to give is that if you're 80 years old and you're falling, what you need is that the power to overcome that overcome that fall. So to move your leg quickly to brace yourself. And this is something
Right.
that goes diminishes significantly as we age. So moving weight, not just like I'll take anybody to push weight. Like dude, that's a W. But also thinking about in their mind about the power aspect too. I think is an important one as we age.
I distinguish strength and power as just pure physics. Strength being you're exerting force to move an object over a certain distance. Let's say you're lifting weights, you have a barbell or dumbbells or whatever, and you're exerting force on the bar. You are moving it through a certain distance, force times distance. That's strength. Power is doing force times distance over time. The faster that you can do it, the more explosively you can do it, the more powerful that you are. And those are very different. I find those are somewhat different. I find that strength helps us to build that hypertrophy, grow the muscle, whereas the power work is all about muscle and nerve interactions. We're sending signals from the brain down through the spinal cord out into the body to get the muscles to actually move. Those are two different types of training. Let's pull on that thread a little bit and help people understand those a little bit better and what those different styles of training might look like.
Like to be honest with you, I haven't emphasized this much in the people I've worked with because that's
Well, it may not be possible to do that in the ICU. So we think about,
but
like, let's do some
in
jumping
around
jacks,
coaching and so
right?
forth, just because like when people are starting from such a poor baseline, I'm just happy that they're moving their bodies and or even introducing moving weight. But the when it comes to power, at least in my own life, like I think about um, just power lifts. So like I'm a big fan of power cleans or hang cleans as an example. I My trainer had me doing this. They call it landmine university, where you do clean and jerks or snatches from a landmine position. And so that's probably the way I train mostly from a power perspective. It's just a little bit easier on the joints. I feel like it's putting myself less at risk of injury, and it adds a nice cardiovascular component too. But yeah, I personally keep it pretty simple. I like also kettlebell swings for power.
Yeah, I
Yeah, like
love
that's a
those. Yeah, they're
very
great.
underrated activity that
Yeah,
hits all your major muscle groups, and you add that cardiovascular component to it, and it's a power move. It's it's one of those tick a lot of boxes when you're doing kettlebell work.
yeah. Skipping as well is another one.
Oh
It's really
yeah,
simple and but it's like light and explode. It just gets those faster twitch muscles working, which is fun. Let's say we do some strength training and we want to make sure that our muscles respond to that stimulus to grow. We want more muscle mass. Talk to me about the importance of protein because you mentioned that earlier. It's coming up a lot lately. There's some confusion about how much we actually need. What are good sources of protein? Like, what are you thinking? What's your thinking around that right now?
yeah. My bias is if everyone optimizes their protein intake, you're going to have some form of benefit. I'm a big believer, and it's somewhat annoying because I read an article about how protein's being overhyped and because you're seeing it in marketing and everywhere. But I actually don't have a problem with. I mean, assuming it's a real source of protein, I don't have.
Right. We don't need protein popcorn, but maybe some organic
Yeah,
meat might be
exactly.
grass fed meat might be something we want to add. Got it.
Yeah, thank you. But I am a huge believer that if you optimize from this, there's going to be significant impacts in your life. And I think 97% of the population underdoses their protein. You'll see different recommendations, like the RDA is that recommendations basically for like survival as opposed to optimal living. But I'm a big fan of the zero point 0.7 to 1 gram per ideal body weight that you'll see mostly coming from the like the athletic literature, but
Yeah.
I think it's a good place for all of us to start. So I'm just over 200 pounds. I aim for about 140 grams to 200 grams of protein in a day, which is a lot and it's not easy to accomplish. But the magic of doing that is you're gonna maintain or put on some lean muscle, which we talked about earlier. The benefits of that. You're gonna feel fuller, so you're gonna have better uh, food choices, better energy. You're gonna have less fluctuations in your blood sugar. Like one of the best things that I've experienced was put on a continuous glucose monitor for 2 weeks, and when I saw the impact of having a starchy meal but having a ton of protein with it, and seeing how it really minimized the impact on my blood sugar spike, that was so informative. And you see that repeatedly amongst patients. You burn calories just by digesting protein. So if you've ever experienced meat sweats, that's exactly what's happening. Your 15% of that of the calories from the protein are used just to try and digest it, and that's how you'll get the higher temperatures. You'll feel sweaty. That's your body working to try and digest that that that, that meat or the source of protein. So I'm a huge fan of focusing on protein, and I just think that if you make that subtle shift, you're gonna see a lot of impact, positive impact in your health.
Yeah, I like that. My wife loves. Yeah, she gets the heat sensation. She doesn't like the cold very much. I don't know why do we live in Canada, but anyways, that's one of the benefits for her certainly that we've seen. You did mention earlier going through the purpose, getting into assessing the individual kryptonite, but then you said something really interesting. You said then we do simple tweaks to be successful or simple tweaks for success. Talk to me a little bit about just keeping things really, really simple and how important that is in order to ensure that we're successful and just being generally healthier.
I love this, Greg. I think it's one probably the most important message is that when you're working with somebody, you want you're not optimizing what's going to give you the best results fastest necessarily, because it's not sustainable. To me, you always got to look at what's going to work for them, and like really thinking about what's going to create that lasting change. And so instead of having a cookie cutter approach, when you talk to them and you determine nutrition is an aspect that they need work on, or exercise, how do we make it as simple as possible? So if we pick on exercise, if you tell me my day's loaded, I got 4 kids, I'm an executive, I don't feel like I don't want to physically go to the gym. So you know what? We're gonna give you 3 high intensity interval training workouts that you could do 3 times a week or more, but here they are. You're gonna do a Tabata kettlebell swing workout. You're gonna do a Tabata burpees, whatever we see fit. And because you only want to do this for 10 minutes, you would take more pain for a short period of time than something more sustainable because of your timeline. So like, let's focus on that. If you tell me you're somebody that uh, on the nutrition side, that loves the quantity of food that they eat, that they like, I just want to eat tons or whatever. Okay, the only thing I'm going to ask you to change is make sure that you eat protein first. That's the first thing you eat instead of the bread when it comes out or whatever. Have the protein first, but also make sure there's enough on your plate. So whatever is normal, increase it by 25 to 50%. Then go to town. See how you feel. Start there. So it's not these like transformative changes that they're making in their life so that they're less likely to succeed. It's a tweak. And the thing that if we're intelligent about this, Greg, is those tweaks can have a significant impact. Like, I'll give you another easy one for the people that have trouble sleeping. Everyone's attached to their phone. Everyone's attached. Hey, they're attached to their phones or whatever, um, and they'll look at their phones up to the last minute. And we all know the blue light is impacting your ability to have quality sleep. So I say, if you're not going to change that, put on pay $15, go to Amazon, put on some blue blocking glasses, when starting like after supper, and see how that affects things. So like we're not doing this huge shift for them, and they're doing something light, and maybe it doesn't move the needle, but it's a habit that's doable, and we could build from that. So like,
Got it.
you know what I mean? So like if they're like, for example, you're that 40-pound overweight executive who doesn't want to change how much they want to eat. So we tweak their protein. They're making some small gains, but they're feeling better about stuff. Okay, maybe now let's think about your eating window. Do you want maybe we manipulate that a little bit? So you normally have your breakfast at first thing in the morning at 7. Let's just move that to 9. Let's move that to 10 and see how you feel. See if this makes it a bit of a difference. And just going slow and have that expectation that this is a journey. This is not going to be a quick fix. But man, you want to make these modifications, we will get you home. It's going to take time, but this will be lasting change.
I love that you say that it's not a quick fix. Like this is a journey. We're not instantaneously we're going to get there. We're making micro changes consistently over time, grabbing wins when we can, generally moving ourselves in the right direction, tiny little shifts and adjustments to move towards something. And it will take time. This is not a quick fix. This is a journey. This is a path that we're on. I think that's such an important mindset for us when we're trying to install health and wellness strategies in our life.
Absolutely. I'm sure you're the same way when it comes to working with your folk. But if you set the expectations as, yeah, you've been on your Instagram and hearing how this change has made someone lose 20 pounds in a short period of time, you know, that sounds great, but is it realistic? And I just want to set you up for success. And when you are expecting these big results in a short period of time, and when you get disappointed and saying like, man, the scale's not showing that we're winning, I might as well eat that, I don't know, Twinkie. I think that's where a lot of people get lost. So let's set the expectations for realsies and have them fall in love with the process as opposed to just begging for that 2 pounds or a few pounds in that first day or whatever.
Yeah, got it. The last element of the press model that you have is social connection. And it's interesting that our social connections have an impact upon cancer, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, depression, and even neurodegenerative diseases. Like our social connections have a significant, measurable, scientifically validated impact on our health and well-being and our disease risk.
Yeah, and I think this is not something that we would learn about in medical school necessarily, but this is another one where the pandemic highlighted, like where we saw people in their old age homes die of loneliness, and a lot of people, they've been attracted to those blue zone shows on Netflix. And if you ask me what that magic sauce is, there's a few magic sauces, but those people that are getting to 100 plus, they have a community, they have a purpose, they have people that they're connecting with on a regular basis, whether that's family or friends. And I think it's such an underappreciated force. And I think in the era of, coming out of the pandemic, but the attachments to our phones, the less social I think we have become to a certain degree, I think it all contributes to some of the issues that we're seeing. So I find the nice thing about the connection piece is that it's stackable. You could, like for me, the way I get my social connection predominantly is through hockey. Like I play 2 men's league teams, only get out once a week though, but it's one of them's a team of docs, so you have this similar shared experience. You talk about some of the struggles that you're experiencing on the day. Back in when I was early family man, you would talk about some of the struggles with the kids and balancing career, but you also had the great joy of of exercising and getting that heart rate up and almost like sweating out the stress. And so I think this is one where you could be really creative, whether it's cooking class, walking group, running group, martial art. There's just so many ways that you could have that connection piece, but also stack it with any other component of healthy living. But it's fairly underrated as far as I'm concerned.
Doc, this has been so helpful, and I know you got to get back to your patients. So I just want to ask you one last question, which is, let's say someone's inspired by this. They want to take the step. They want to shift, make sure they never have to take a prescription. They want to shift into prevention. What's a way for us to get started? What are some things that you would be thinking top of mind just to get rolling on this and to implement right away?
Yeah, great question. And I think for most people, we're going to tie either nutrition and the exercise side of things. So on the nutrition side, I keep preaching and I feel bad to a certain degree, but that protein side is so important. And what allows you to be more successful also is taking the time to prepare, to have that on that Sunday, cook up your protein, cook up your sides, cook up the stuff that you think you're going to want to eat throughout the week. And it takes some of the decision out of it. So when you are coming home hungry or you're going to work hungry, you're not just grabbing the first thing. You know that there's something that's readily available for you to stay on plan. So I'd say think about protein, think about prepping for that week. And when it comes to the exercise component, not I think the lift for a lot of people to do weight training is high for a lot of people. So I would say just increase that step count, increase it by, take whatever number you have today, increase that by 25%. It's directly tied to longevity. It's directly tied to sleep, mental health. It's just so good for you to get your body moving on a regular basis. Good for your blood sugar, good for burning more calories even after a meal. So just thinking, even in these winter months, thinking about ways that you could incorporate more movement during the day. Go use a bathroom a floor up or below, park a little bit further. But yeah, you guys got this. We got this, because collectively, I got to say, we do need to be healthier as a society. And I think there's never been a time where I've seen more people wanting to get healthy. So let's give them the tools and let's encourage folks. And
we got this.
We got this.
Dr. Kwadwo, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us today. I'm going to talk about your book in the extra. You don't need to worry about that. Your website, I'll tell everyone where to find you. But thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us, to share your wisdom, and for all the incredible work you're doing in the world right now. It's awesome.
I'm great. Well, continue to be legendary. I'm just learning more about you. Speaker, podcaster, coach, just doing all the right things to change lives. And it's an inspiration, so keep it up.
Right on. Thanks, buddy. I'm sure we're going to do some fun things together. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. Wasn't Dr. Kwadwo great? Like, how powerful is it that we know that we can use prevention instead of prescription to get healthy and to stay healthy? If while you were listening to this, watching this, you thought of somebody who would benefit from knowing this information that Dr. Kyeremanteng shared with us today, please send this to them. Please share this with them, because we need to get this information out into the hands of as many people as possible to make the world a better place. And when you share this with people that you care about, obviously that just makes it easier for them to get better, and ultimately makes the world into what we want it to be, which is a place where everybody can be healthy, perform to their potential, and thrive. So without any further ado, that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate you being here, and congratulations. Take a moment just to pause and give yourself a little pat on the back for spending an hour thinking about your own health and well-being and how you can be better. All right, everyone, that's it for this week. See you next time. All the best. All right, everyone, hope you enjoyed that session. This is a little note from the lawyers. This podcast and video contains advice and information relating to health and wellness, and is presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes. We've made enormous efforts to make sure that the information is accurate and that what we've contained in this episode is based on science and research. However, it should still only be used as a supplement rather than to replace the advice of your doctor or other qualified healthcare professional. If you know or suspect that you have a health problem, it's recommended that you seek your qualified healthcare professional's advice before embarking on any program, treatment, or protocol. All right, thanks for listening in. Really appreciate you. We'll see you in the next video, session, or podcast.